I was 32 when I thought I found the love of my life. Tyler was everything I ever wanted in a husband. Tall, successful, charming, and he made me feel like the only woman in the world. 4 years together, and today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But that morning, I saw my sister Natalie's name light up on Tyler's phone. The message read, "Last night was perfect." I smiled, until I stood at the altar and read his texts aloud. If you're watching this from somewhere where betrayal hit you, do drop your location in the comments and subscribe to join others who understand this pain. Looking back, Tyler and I had what everyone called the perfect relationship. We met at a charity fundraiser in downtown Chicago 4 years ago. I was running the marketing team for the event, coordinating with donors and making sure everything went smoothly. Tyler arrived as a guest of one of our major contributors, looking devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit. "You look stressed," he said, handing me a glass of champagne when he caught me hiding in a quiet corner for a moment of peace. "Is it that obvious?" I laughed, accepting the drink gratefully. "Only to someone who's been watching you command the room for the past hour," he replied with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. That was Tyler. Observant, thoughtful, and always knowing exactly what to say. He asked for my number that night, and by the end of our first date at a small Italian restaurant the following week, I was already falling for him. Our romance was effortless. We shared a love for classic films, Sunday morning hikes, and trying new restaurants. Where I was organized and sometimes anxious, Tyler was spontaneous and carefree. He balanced me perfectly, bringing joy and adventure into my structured life as a marketing executive. Tyler worked as a financial advisor at a prestigious firm downtown. His clients loved him for his charisma and clever investment strategies. My friends were instantly charmed by him, and even my typically protective father warmed up to Tyler after just one meeting. "He's a keeper, Chelsea," my mom whispered to me after Tyler helped her carry dishes to the kitchen during his first visit to my parents' home. "I've never seen you this happy." My sister Natalie was a different story. 2 years younger than me, and my complete opposite, Natalie lived the free-spirited artist life I sometimes secretly envied. While I followed our parents' expectations with a sensible career and savings account, Natalie traveled, painted, and lived moment to moment. Despite our differences, we remained close. She was my confidant, my reality check, and often my voice of reason. When I first introduced Natalie to Tyler, there was an immediate tension between them. Natalie found him too polished, while Tyler thought she was irresponsible. Their apparent personality clash worried me initially, but I chalked it up to their opposing worldviews. Over time, they seemed to develop a grudging respect for each other, and I was relieved that the two most important people in my life could at least be civil. "He's growing on me," Natalie admitted after a year of knowing Tyler. "I can see why you love him so much." By our second anniversary, Tyler and I had moved in together, merging our lives into a beautiful downtown apartment with views of Lake Michigan. We talked about our future, constantly planning weekend getaways, discussing potential baby names, and dreaming about the home we'd build together. The proposal came during a weekend trip to Napa Valley. Tyler had arranged a private sunset hot air balloon ride over the vineyards. As we floated above the picturesque landscape, he got down on one knee in the basket and presented a stunning diamond ring. "Chelsea, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Will you marry me?" I couldn't say yes fast enough. The diamond caught the setting sun as he slipped it onto my finger, and I truly believed I'd never be happier than I was in that moment. Wedding planning became our shared project. Tyler was surprisingly involved, offering opinions on everything from floral arrangements to menu selections. We decided on a spring ceremony at an elegant historic hotel in downtown Chicago, with 150 of our closest friends and family. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. Small red flags that my excitement about the wedding overshadowed. Tyler began having more late-night client meetings than usual. Sometimes his phone would ding with messages, and he'd quickly flip it over or step out of the room to respond. He changed his phone password, claiming it was for work security purposes. There was also a subtle shift in his affection. Nothing dramatic, just moments where he seemed distant or distracted. When I asked if something was bothering him, he'd blame work stress or wedding jitters. Planning a wedding is a lot of pressure, my friend Jordan reassured me when I mentioned my concerns. It's normal to feel some tension. I believed that explanation. After all, we were spending a small fortune on the wedding, coordinating dozens of vendors and managing family expectations. If Tyler was occasionally preoccupied or stepping away to take calls, it was probably just wedding-related stress. 6 months of planning flew by, and suddenly, we were 1 week away from the big day. My parents flew in from Phoenix, staying at the same hotel where we'd hold the ceremony. Natalie arrived 2 days later, apologizing for not being more involved in the preparations. "I've been swamped with this new gallery installation," she explained, hugging me tightly. "But I'm here now and ready to help with whatever you need." I was just happy to have my sister with me for the final countdown. The rehearsal dinner went perfectly. Tyler gave a beautiful toast about our future together, and everyone commented on what a perfect couple we made. As the evening wound down, Tyler kissed me goodnight at my hotel room door. "Next time I see you, you'll be walking down the aisle to become my wife," he whispered. "I can't wait." I fell asleep that night, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world, completely unaware that my perfect fairy tale was about to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. The morning of my wedding day dawned bright and clear. I woke up in my luxury hotel suite to sunshine streaming through the windows and the distant sound of Chicago traffic below. For a moment, I just lay there, savoring the knowledge that in a few hours, I'd be Mrs. Tyler Donovan. My phone buzzed with messages from bridesmaids, all converging on my suite for hair and makeup. My mother arrived first, bringing breakfast and happy tears. "I can't believe my baby girl is getting married today," she said, arranging pastries on a tray while the hotel staff set up a mimosa station. Soon the room was filled with my closest friends, all in matching silk robes, music playing as makeup artists and hairstylists transformed us one by one. The photographer captured candid moments of laughter and champagne toasts. It was everything I'd dreamed my wedding morning would be, except for one detail. "Has anyone heard from Natalie?" I asked, checking my phone for the third time. My sister was supposed to be here an hour ago, and it wasn't like her to be late for something this important. "She texted me that she's running behind," my friend Jordan said. "Something about needing to pick up her dress from alterations." I frowned, remembering that we'd had final fittings 2 days ago. Why would Natalie's dress still be at alterations before I could dwell on it? My wedding coordinator appeared with a question about the seating chart, and I was pulled back into the whirlwind of wedding day logistics. An hour later, with my hair styled in loose waves and my makeup nearly complete, I realized I needed to send Tyler a message about the photographer's timeline. I reached for my phone only to discover it was dead. "Does anyone have a charger?" I asked, but no one had brought one compatible with my phone. "Just use Tyler's room phone to call him," Jordan suggested. "You have a key to his room, right?" I did. We'd decided to follow tradition and spend the night before the wedding apart, with Tyler staying in a room 2 floors below mine. Taking the keycard from my wallet, I slipped out of my suite, still in my robe but with full hair and makeup. "I'll be right back," I promised, stepping into the elevator. Tyler's room was quiet when I entered. I called out his name, but there was no answer. The sound of the shower running from the bathroom explained why. I smiled, picturing him getting ready to become my husband. I spotted his phone on the nightstand, its screen lighting up with an incoming message. I wasn't the type to check my partner's phone, firmly believing in privacy and trust. But as I moved to pick up the hotel phone beside it, my sister's name on Tyler's screen caught my eye. Natalie. "Last night was perfect." I froze, staring at those 4 words. Last night, what was perfect about last night, the rehearsal dinner? But Natalie had left early, claiming a migraine. Tyler had stayed until the end, having drinks with his groomsmen after I'd gone up to my room. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I glanced toward the bathroom door. The shower was still running. Before I could talk myself out of it, I picked up Tyler's phone. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. He must have disabled the security features temporarily. The full message thread with my sister loaded, and my world collapsed around me. Scrolling back weeks, then months, I found hundreds of messages between them. Flirtatious at first, then explicitly romantic. Photos exchanged that made me physically ill. Plans made for secret meetings. Declarations of feelings that stabbed through my heart. Natalie, what about Chelsea? Tyler. I care about her, but what we have is different, special. Natalie, we can't keep doing this. She's my sister. Tyler, just a little longer. I'll figure it out after the wedding. After the wedding, they were planning to continue this after he married me. The most recent exchanges made my knees buckle. Tyler, one last night before the wedding. Natalie, this is wrong. Tyler, meet me anyway. Room 718, midnight. Natalie, what if someone sees us? Tyler, everyone will be asleep. One last time, I promise. Natalie, okay, but after tomorrow we need to stop. And then this morning, last night was perfect. I felt like I was going to vomit. My sister and my fiancé. The two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the most painful way possible. Memories flashed through my mind, reframing themselves with this new, horrible context. The times Tyler had been working late. Natalie's decreased involvement in wedding planning. The tension between them that I'd misinterpreted as personality clash rather than sexual tension. I heard the shower turn off and quickly placed the phone back on the nightstand, my mind racing. Should I confront him now? Cancel the wedding, run away. In that moment, a different idea formed. One that would ensure they couldn't hide what they'd done, couldn't gaslight me, or make excuses. They deserved to be exposed not just to me, but to everyone. With shaking hands, I took screenshots of the most damning messages and emailed them to myself. Then I carefully placed the phone exactly as I'd found it and slipped out of the room before Tyler emerged from the bathroom. In the elevator back to my suite, I leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. A couple got in dressed for a wedding. My wedding. Are you okay, dear? The woman asked, noticing my distress. I forced a smile. Just wedding day jitters. But inside, I wasn't jittery. I was eerily calm, my mind clear for the first time in months. I knew exactly what I needed to do. When I returned to my suite, I found Natalie had finally arrived. She was chatting animatedly with the bridesmaids, looking slightly flushed, but otherwise normal. How could she stand there helping with my veil after what she'd done? Chelsea. Where did you disappear to? Jordan asked as I walked in. Just needed to check on something with Tyler, I said, watching Natalie's reaction carefully. Her smile faltered slightly, a flash of panic crossing her features before she composed herself. How's the groom holding up? The audacity of her question made me want to scream, but I maintained my composure. He's good. Getting ready. I met her eyes directly. Said something about having trouble sleeping last night. Natalie quickly looked away, busying herself with arranging the bridesmaids' bouquets. These flowers are gorgeous, Chelsea. The florist did an amazing job. I allowed the conversation to shift, watching my sister with new eyes. Had she always been this good at deception? How long had they been making a fool of me? My mother approached with my wedding dress, a stunning lace gown I'd spent months searching for. Time to get you dressed, sweetheart. Can you believe the moment is finally here? I couldn't bring myself to break her heart just yet. Instead, I nodded and stepped behind the dressing screen. As my mother and Jordan helped me into my gown, I focused on breathing steadily, my mind formulating a plan. You look absolutely breathtaking. My mother whispered, tears in her eyes, as she stepped back to look at me. The photographer captured the moment, unaware of the storm raging inside me. I posed for photos, smiled appropriately, and played the part of the excited bride while mentally preparing for what would come next. When the bridesmaids left to take their positions for the ceremony, I asked Jordan to stay behind. "Is everything okay?" she asked, noticing my serious expression. "I need a favor," I said, pulling her away from the others. "And I need you not to ask questions right now." Jordan had been my best friend since college. She searched my face and then nodded. "Anything." "I need you to get Tyler's phone from his room without him knowing. Can you create a distraction for the groomsmen?" To her credit, Jordan didn't ask why. "Consider it done," she said, squeezing my hand. While Jordan executed her part of the plan, I called my father. He was waiting in the hotel lobby to walk me down the aisle. "Dad, I need to talk to you about the ceremony," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I want to make a change to the program." "Now, but honey, the guests are already being seated." "It's important, Dad. Please trust me." There must have been something in my voice that convinced him. 20 minutes later, everything was arranged. The wedding coordinator was confused by my last-minute changes but made the necessary adjustments. Jordan returned with Tyler's phone, slipped discreetly into my emergency wedding kit. Got it while the photographer was taking shots of the guys. Tyler thinks he left it in the groom's suite. "Thank you," I said, giving her a hug that lasted a little too long. She pulled back, studying my face. "Chelsea, what's going on?" "You'll see," I replied. "Just promise you'll still be my friend after today." Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. It was time. My father entered, looking handsome in his tuxedo, his eyes widening at the sight of me in my wedding dress. "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. If only he knew what was about to happen. As we took our positions in the hallway outside the ballroom, I could hear the string quartet playing, signaling the processional had begun. One by one, my bridesmaids walked down the aisle, including Natalie, who avoided looking back at me. My father squeezed my arm. "Ready, sweetheart?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "More ready than you know." The doors opened wide, and the guests rose to their feet. At the end of the aisle stood Tyler, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, smiling at me with what I now recognized as the face of a consummate liar. With each step toward my future, I felt strangely powerful. The guests misinterpreted my tears as joy, not knowing they were witnessing not a beginning, but an end. The ballroom was breathtaking, exactly as I'd envisioned it would be. White roses and hydrangeas adorned every surface, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and sheer fabric draped from ceiling to walls created an ethereal atmosphere. 150 smiling faces turned to watch me process down the aisle on my father's arm. Tyler stood at the altar, handsome in his black tuxedo, a white rose boutonniere pinned to his lapel. His eyes widened appreciatively as he took in my appearance, and for the briefest moment I almost faltered. How could someone look at me with such apparent adoration while betraying me so completely? My bridesmaids were arranged to my left, all in the pale blue dresses we'd spent months selecting. Natalie stood among them, her smile tight and her eyes never quite meeting mine. To Tyler's right stood his groomsmen, unaware of the bomb about to detonate. When we reached the altar, the officiant asked the traditional question, "Who gives this woman to be married?" My father answered, "Her mother and I do," and placed my hand in Tyler's before taking his seat next to my mother in the front row. Tyler squeezed my hand and whispered, "You look incredible." I smiled back, knowing it wouldn't be long now. The ceremony proceeded as planned through the initial readings and songs. One of Tyler's cousins read a passage about love and trust that now seemed like a cruel joke. My college roommate sang, "At Last." her beautiful voice filling the room as Tyler gazed at me with practiced sincerity. Then came the moment for our vows. We had decided to write our own, wanting to personalize this portion of the ceremony. The officiant announced that Tyler would go first. Tyler cleared his throat and pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. His voice rang clear and confident as he began. Chelsea, from the moment we met, I knew you were special. You brought order to my chaos, purpose to my days, and a love I never thought possible. I stand here today to promise you my faithfulness, my honesty, and my whole heart for all the days of my life. The irony of his words about faithfulness and honesty nearly made me laugh out loud. He continued promising to cherish and respect me, to build a life of trust and partnership. Each word was another knife in my heart, knowing how empty these promises truly were. When he finished, there were murmurs of appreciation from the guests and a few audible sniffles. Tyler looked pleased with himself, completely unaware of what was coming. And now Chelsea will share her vows, the officiant announced, turning to me with an encouraging smile. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for since my discovery just hours ago. I took a deep breath and reached into the hidden pocket of my wedding dress, not for the vows I'd spent weeks perfecting, but for Tyler's phone. I had written vows, I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Beautiful promises about our future together. But this morning, I discovered something that made me realize those vows would be built on lies. A confused murmur rippled through the audience. Tyler's smile faltered, his eyes darting nervously between me and the phone in my hand. Chelsea, he whispered urgently. What are you doing? I ignored him and continued addressing our guests. I believe marriage should be founded on honesty and faithfulness. Unfortunately, I discovered today that Tyler and my sister Natalie have been having an affair. Gasps echoed throughout the ballroom. Tyler's face drained of color. From the corner of my eye, I saw Natalie attempt to slip away, only to be blocked by Jordan and another bridesmaid. Rather than share the vows I wrote, I'd like to read some text messages I found this morning. I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. I unlocked Tyler's phone and began to read. Tyler, 3 weeks ago. I miss the taste of you. Can you get away tonight? Natalie's response. Chelsea has that dress fitting. Come to my place at 8. More gasps. My mother's hand flew to her mouth in horror. My father half rose from his seat, his face contorted with rage. I continued reading, selecting the most damning exchanges. Messages about their plans to meet in hotel rooms at Natalie's apartment, even once in my own home, while I was away on a business trip. Messages discussing their plans to continue seeing each other, even after the wedding. And finally, from last night, I said, my voice cutting through the shocked silence of the room. Tyler, one last night before the wedding. Natalie, this is wrong. Tyler, meet me anyway. Room 718, midnight. I looked up directly at Tyler, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. And this morning from my sister. Last night was perfect. I dropped the phone onto the altar between us. The wedding is canceled, I announced. Please enjoy the reception without us. The bar is open and dinner will be served as planned. I apologize for the inconvenience. With that, I turned and walked back down the aisle alone. This time, my head held high, despite the tears streaming down my face. Behind me, chaos erupted. The moment I stepped out of the ballroom, the carefully constructed composure I'd maintained crumbled. I leaned against the wall in the empty hallway, struggling to breathe through the sobs that racked my body. Inside, I could hear shouting. Tyler's desperate voice calling my name. My father's deeper tone thunderous with rage. The collective buzz of 150 guests witnessing the implosion of what should have been the happiest day of my life. The double doors burst open and Tyler stumbled out, his face contorted with a mixture of panic and anger. Chelsea, please let me explain. Explain what? I spat back, finding strength in my fury. How you've been sleeping with my sister. How you plan to marry me while continuing your affair? Please enlighten me. It's not what you think, he pleaded, reaching for my hands. I jerked away from his touch. It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake that meant nothing. A mistake is forgetting to pick up dry cleaning Tyler. Having an affair with your fiancé's sister is a choice. A series of choices made over and over again. I love you, Chelsea. Only you. What happened with Natalie was just physical, it wasn't real. I laughed bitterly. That's supposed to make me feel better, that you were willing to throw away our relationship for something that wasn't real. Before he could respond, my father burst through the doors, lunging toward Tyler with his fists raised. Two of Tyler's groomsmen rushed out behind him, barely managing to hold my father back. You worthless piece of garbage! My father roared, straining against the men restraining him. After everything our family did for you. Tyler backed away, hands raised defensively. Sir, please, this is between Chelsea and me. The hell it is. My father's face was purple with rage. You didn't just betray my daughter, you betrayed this entire family. Jordan appeared at my side, slipping a supportive arm around my waist. Let's get you out of here, she whispered, guiding me toward the service elevator at the end of the hall. As we walked away, I heard Natalie's voice behind us. Chelsea, wait, please. I turned to see my sister pushing through the growing crowd in the hallway, mascara streaming down her face. The sight of her still in the bridesmaid dress I had carefully chosen to complement her features sent a fresh wave of pain through me. Don't you dare speak to me, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You're dead to me. The raw hurt on her face gave me a momentary sense of bitter satisfaction, quickly replaced by emptiness. Jordan ushered me into the elevator and pressed the button for my floor. Your room will be swarming with family soon, she said as the doors closed. Let's get your things and find somewhere else for you to stay. In the bridal suite, everything looked exactly as we'd left it. Champagne glasses half full, makeup scattered across the vanity. My overnight bag packed for the honeymoon we were supposed to leave for tomorrow morning. The ordinary remnants of what should have been an extraordinary day. What can I do? Jordan asked, watching me stare blankly at the room. Help me pack, I managed to say. I need to get out of this dress, out of this hotel, out of this city. Jordan nodded and began gathering my belongings while I stepped behind the dressing screen. I reached for the zipper of my wedding dress, but couldn't quite reach it. A sob escaped me, not from the physical limitation, but from the realization that Tyler should have been the one to remove this dress tonight in a very different context. Let me help, Jordan said softly, appearing beside me. With gentle hands, she unzipped the gown and helped me step out of it. As the expensive fabric pooled at my feet, I felt a strange mixture of loss and liberation. Jordan hung the dress carefully on its hanger. What do you want to do with this? Leave it, I said, pulling on jeans and a sweater. I never want to see it again. My phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. Calls and texts from family members, friends, even guests I barely knew. News of the dramatic ceremony ending had spread like wildfire, and several attendees had recorded the whole thing on their phones. It wouldn't be long before the video hit social media. Turn it off, I told Jordan, handing her my phone. I can't deal with any of that right now. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Chelsea, honey, it's Mom. Please let me in. I hesitated, unsure if I could face her yet. Tell her I'll call her tomorrow, I whispered to Jordan. Jordan opened the door just enough to speak with my mother. I couldn't hear their exchange, but moments later, Jordan closed the door and returned to packing. She's worried about you, Jordan said. But she understands you need space. What about Natalie? I couldn't help asking. Jordan's expression hardened. Your mother said she's staying with a friend tonight. Apparently, she tried to claim it was all Tyler's fault that he pursued her relentlessly. And my mother believed that. I don't think so. Jordan zipped my suitcase closed. But she's in shock trying to make sense of how her daughters ended up in this situation. The hotel manager appeared at my door next, offering a private exit through the service area to avoid the growing media presence in the lobby. Apparently, someone had tipped off a local news station about the wedding disaster. Jordan arranged for a car to take us to her apartment across town. As we slipped out through the kitchen and loading dock area, I felt like a criminal escaping the scene of a crime rather than a bride on her wedding day. In the back seat of the taxi, I finally allowed myself to fully break down sobbing against Jordan's shoulder. The weight of the day's revelations, the public humiliation, and the uncertain future ahead of me crashed down all at once. "You're going to get through this," Jordan promised, stroking my hair. "It feels impossible now, but you will survive, and I'll be with you every step of the way." I wanted to believe her, but as the taxi carried me away from what should have been the beginning of my happily ever after, all I could feel was an overwhelming sense of loss, betrayal, and the terrifying unknown of what came next. The first week after what should have been my wedding day passed in a blur of grief, rage, and numbing shock. I stayed at Jordan's apartment, unable to face returning to the home I had shared with Tyler. The physical and emotional toll was immense. I couldn't eat, barely slept, and spent hours staring blankly at walls, replaying years of memories through the new lens of betrayal. "You need to eat something," Jordan would say, placing toast or soup beside me that would go untouched until cold. The outside world felt overwhelming and distant. I took a leave of absence from my marketing job, unable to focus on client pitches and campaign strategies when my personal life had imploded so spectacularly. My boss was understanding, having seen the viral video of my wedding ceremony meltdown that had now been viewed millions of times online. "Take all the time you need," she said during our brief phone call. "Your position will be waiting when you're ready to return." But would I ever be ready? Chicago suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. Every street corner restaurant and coffee shop held memories of Tyler and our life together. Even Jordan's apartment offered little escape as my phone continued to blow up with notifications despite my attempts to disconnect. Tyler's calls and messages were relentless at first. Dozens of voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to angry accusations that I had humiliated him unnecessarily. As if a private confrontation would have been more appropriate after he had betrayed me with my own sister. "You could have talked to me first," one message said. "Instead, you chose to destroy me publicly. How is that any better than what I did?" I deleted each message without responding, finding a grim satisfaction in his suffering that did nothing to heal my own pain. Natalie's attempts at contact were equally persistent, but took a different tone. Her messages overflowed with self-loathing and excuses. "I never meant for this to happen," she wrote. "It started as innocent flirting, and then something just happened between us. I tried to end it so many times, Chelsea. Please, just let me explain in person." I blocked her number after the 20th message, unable to stomach her justifications. My parents were caught in an impossible position. My mother called daily. Her voice strained as she tried to comfort me, while also dealing with her own sense of betrayal and the family crisis that had erupted. "Your father won't speak to Natalie," she informed me during one call. "He's talking about changing his will." "Please don't put me in the middle of this, Mom," I begged. "I can't handle the family drama right now." "I know, sweetheart. I just thought you should know that we're on your side." But even their unwavering support couldn't ease the fundamental wound. The two people I had trusted most had conspired behind my back, making a mockery of my love and faith in them. A week after the wedding disaster, I met with a lawyer to discuss untangling the financial aspects of my relationship with Tyler. We had joint bank accounts, shared investments, and my name was on the lease for our apartment along with his. "These situations are never simple," the lawyer explained, reviewing our documents. But the fact that you weren't legally married makes the separation of assets cleaner. I nodded, feeling a strange gratitude that I had discovered the affair before the marriage rather than after. At least I'd been spared the additional complication of divorce proceedings. Tyler had already withdrawn half the money from our joint accounts, which the lawyer assured me was his legal right. I would need to return to our apartment to collect my personal belongings, a prospect I dreaded but couldn't avoid indefinitely. Jordan offered to go with me and suggested we choose a time when Tyler would be at work. "We'll get in and out quickly," she promised. "I'll bring some of the guys from my office to help move furniture." With the practical matters somewhat addressed, I turned to the emotional healing process. Jordan gently suggested therapy, and after initial resistance, I agreed to try a session with her own therapist, Dr. Lambert. "What you've experienced is a form of trauma," Dr. Lambert explained during our first meeting. "The simultaneous betrayal by your fiancé and your sister has undermined your basic trust in relationships. Healing will take time and intentional work." I attended sessions twice weekly, slowly beginning to process the complex layers of grief, anger, and shattered trust. Dr. Lambert helped me recognize that while the pain was overwhelming now, it wouldn't always be this intense. "You're grieving not just the loss of your relationship with Tyler, but also with your sister and the future you had envisioned," she said. "Allow yourself to feel that grief without judgment." 3 weeks after the wedding, Natalie showed up unannounced at Jordan's apartment. I was alone, Jordan having returned to work after taking time off to support me. When I saw my sister through the peephole, my first instinct was to ignore her knocking. But after 5 minutes of persistent attempts, something in me snapped. I yanked the door open, confronting her for the first time since the ceremony. "What do you want?" Natalie looked terrible. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her normally styled hair hung limp, and she had lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Some vindictive part of me was pleased to see her suffering. "Can I please come in?" she asked, her voice small. "Just for 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside to let her enter. We stood awkwardly in Jordan's living room, the air heavy with unspoken accusations. "Well," I prompted when she remained silent. "You wanted to talk, so talk." "I don't even know where to begin," she said, tears filling her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Chelsea. What I did was unforgivable." "Yes, it was," I agreed coldly. "Is that all you came to say?" "No, I wanted you to know that Tyler and I are over. Completely over. It was a horrible mistake that never should have happened." I laughed bitterly. "You think that matters to me now, whether you two stay together or not, doesn't change what you did." "I know," she whispered. "I just thought you should know that it wasn't some grand love affair. It was just stupid and selfish." He was feeling neglected with all the wedding planning, and I was lonely after breaking up with Ryan. And one night after dinner at your place, he walked me to my car and— "Stop," I interrupted, bile rising in my throat. "I don't want the details." "I hate myself for hurting you," Natalie continued, tears streaming down her face. "You're my sister, my best friend. I would give anything to take it back." "But you can't," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "You can't undo what you did. You can't unfuck my fiancé." Natalie flinched at my crude language, so unlike my usual careful speech. "I know, is there any chance, any possibility at all that someday you might forgive me?" I studied my sister's face, searching for the person I had loved and trusted my entire life. All I saw was the woman who had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Right now, I can't imagine ever trusting you again. Maybe someday that will change, but I wouldn't count on it. Natalie nodded, accepting this harsh reality. I understand. I'll give you space. But Chelsea, please know that I love you, and I'll be here whenever or if ever you're ready to talk again. As she turned to leave, a question burned in my throat. Did you love him? Natalie froze her hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, she answered, No, it was never about love. That's what makes it all so pointlessly tragic. After she left, I sat motionless on Jordan's couch, processing the confrontation. Strangely, rather than reopening the wound, the encounter had given me a small measure of clarity. Neither Tyler nor Natalie had acted out of some great passion that might in some twisted way have made their betrayal comprehensible. They had simply been selfish, careless with my heart and our family bonds. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in Chicago surrounded by the wreckage of my old life. I needed a fresh start somewhere I could rebuild without constant reminders of what I'd lost. I'm thinking of moving to Seattle, I told Jordan when she returned from work. My company has an office there, and I could request a transfer. Jordan looked surprised, but not disapproving. That's a big change. Are you sure? No, I admitted. I'm not sure of anything right now, but I know I can't heal here where everything reminds me of Tyler and Natalie. I need neutral ground. If that's what you need, I'll support you, Jordan promised. But don't rush the decision. Give yourself time to think it through. I took her advice, spending the next week researching Seattle, speaking with my company about transfer possibilities, and discussing the potential move with Dr. Lambert. The more I considered it, the more right it felt. A new city, new people, new opportunities. A chance to reinvent myself, not as the woman who was publicly betrayed, but as someone defined by her strength and resilience rather than her wounds. 6 weeks after the wedding, that never was, I accepted a position in my company's Seattle office. Tyler continued his attempts to reconcile, claiming he had made the biggest mistake of his life and would spend forever making it up to me if I'd just give him another chance. I never loved Natalie, he insisted during an unexpected visit to Jordan's apartment. It was just physical. What we had was real Chelsea. We can get past this. I looked at this man I had once planned to spend my life with and felt nothing but a dull ache where love had once resided. No, Tyler, we can't. Even if I could somehow forgive the affair, I could never forget it. Every business trip, every late night at work, every text message would trigger suspicion. That's not a marriage, it's a prison. People overcome infidelity all the time, he argued desperately. Maybe they do, I conceded. But I don't want to. I deserve better than a relationship built on broken trust. We both know that. His face crumpled with the realization that nothing he could say would change my mind. As he turned to leave, he asked, Will you ever forgive me? I considered the question carefully before answering. Someday, I might forgive you for my own peace of mind. But I will never forget, and we will never be together again. As the door closed behind him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The conversation had confirmed what I already knew in my heart. There was no going back, only forward into whatever future I chose to create for myself. 2 months after the wedding, I boarded a plane to Seattle, leaving behind the shattered pieces of my old life and carrying with me the hard-won wisdom that would shape my new one. 2 years can change everything, or so I discovered after relocating to Seattle. The rain-soaked city, so different from Chicago's urban landscape, became my sanctuary and the birthplace of my reinvention. My first apartment was a small studio in Capitol Hill, with just enough room for the few possessions I'd brought from my old life. The simplicity was an intentional part of my commitment to starting fresh, with only what I truly needed. I painted the walls a soft blue-gray, bought plants to fill the windows, and slowly began creating a space that was entirely mine, untainted by memories of betrayal. The Seattle branch of my marketing firm was smaller than Chicago's, offering me both new professional challenges and a welcome anonymity. None of my coworkers had seen the viral video of my wedding disaster, or if they had, they were kind enough never to mention it. I was evaluated on my work, not my personal tragedy, which felt like an unexpected gift. 6 months into my new life, I took a risk that the old Chelsea would never have considered. I left the security of my corporate job to start my own boutique event planning business. The irony wasn't lost on me that after my own wedding had imploded so spectacularly, I was now helping others create their perfect celebrations. But perhaps it was precisely because of my experience that I brought a unique perspective to the work and attention to authentic relationships beneath the surface glitter of event design. You have an incredible eye for what matters. One bride told me after I gently suggested she scale back elaborate decorations to focus on creating meaningful moments for guests. Most planners just want to spend more money on flowers. My business grew steadily through word of mouth. I specialized in intimate weddings and milestone celebrations, bringing my marketing expertise to create experiences that told each client's unique story. The work was healing in ways therapy alone couldn't touch, allowing me to reclaim joy in celebration without the shadow of my own loss darkening the process. My personal growth paralleled my professional evolution. Therapy continued less frequently, but with deeper insights, as Dr. Lambert and I navigated the complex terrain of rebuilding trust, not just in others, but in my own judgment. I missed so many red flags with Tyler. I admitted during one session, a year after the wedding day revelation, "How can I ever trust myself to choose better?" "The red flags were subtle, and you were in love," Dr. Lambert reminded me. "But now you have new awareness. You're not the same person who missed those signs." She was right. I had changed fundamentally, becoming more attuned to inconsistencies in others' words and actions, more willing to ask difficult questions, and most importantly, more committed to honoring my own intuition when something felt wrong. My relationship with my family evolved in unexpected ways. My father, after months of refusing to speak to Natalie, eventually reached a place of strained civility with her, largely for my mother's sake. They never regained their former closeness, but family holidays no longer involved separate celebrations to keep us apart. My mother visited me in Seattle 3 times that first year, gradually accepting that my move wasn't temporary, but a permanent new chapter. During her second visit, she broached the subject I'd been avoiding. "Natalie asks about you every time we talk," she said carefully as we walked along Alki Beach. "She still hopes you might someday be open to reconnecting." I stopped walking, watching the waves lap against the shore. "I'm not ready for that, Mom. I might never be." "I understand," she said, linking her arm through mine. "I'm not pressuring you. I just thought you should know that she's changed a lot since everything. She's in therapy too, working through why she made such destructive choices." "I'm glad for her," I said, meaning it. "I don't wish her ill. I just can't have her in my life." My mother nodded, accepting my boundary. "You know what I'm most proud of? How you've rebuilt your life. Your father and I worried about you that first year, but look at you now. You're thriving, Chelsea." She was right. Despite the pain, or perhaps because of it, I had created a life more authentic and fulfilling than the one I'd planned with Tyler. I had fewer friends in Seattle, but deeper connections with each one. I had less certainty about my future, but more appreciation for the present. I had experienced profound betrayal, but also discovered my own resilience. As for Tyler, I heard through mutual friends that he had left Chicago 6 months after I did, taking a position with a firm in Boston. He dated serially for a while, according to social media updates that occasionally filtered through to me before settling into a relationship with a corporate attorney. I felt nothing when I learned this news, neither joy nor sorrow, which I recognized as its own form of healing. Natalie and Tyler's relationship had imploded spectacularly in the aftermath of the wedding, their affair unable to withstand the harsh light of public exposure and shared guilt. According to my mother, Natalie had moved temporarily to Portland, working at a gallery there while finding herself. She had written me several letters during my first year in Seattle, which remained unopened in a drawer. Perhaps someday I would read them, but I wasn't ready yet. Dating again was the final frontier of my recovery, one I approached with cautious deliberation. My first attempts were coffee meetings that never progressed beyond friendly conversation, my walls still too high to allow meaningful connection. Take your time, my Seattle therapist advised. There's no timeline for when you should be ready to date again. A year and a half after the wedding disaster, I met Brian at a client's book launch event that I had organized. He was the author's brother in town from Portland for the celebration, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence I found instantly appealing. When he asked for my number at the end of the evening, I surprised myself by giving it to him. Our relationship developed slowly, with careful attention to communication and boundaries. I told him about my past on our third date, watching his reaction closely for any sign of judgment or discomfort. "That must have been incredibly painful," he said, reaching for my hand across the table. "Thank you for trusting me enough to share that." Trust. Such a simple word for such a complex process. Brian never pushed for more than I was ready to give, respecting the pace I needed to feel safe, opening my heart again. When I flinched at a text message that arrived late at night, he showed me his phone without being asked. When work trips took him out of town, he called when he said he would. Slowly, the hypervigilance that had characterized my early dating fears began to subside. 6 months into our relationship, Brian was offered a job in Seattle. "I'm not moving here for you," he clarified. "The opportunity is great, and I've been wanting to leave Portland. But I won't pretend I'm not happy. It means we can see where this goes without the distance." His honesty was refreshing, acknowledging our connection without placing pressure or expectations on it. I helped him find an apartment in my neighborhood deliberately separate from mine. We weren't ready for cohabitation, both valuing our independence too much to rush into domestic partnership. As my second year in Seattle drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on the journey from that devastating wedding day to the life I now lived. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. I doubted it ever would. But it had transformed from an acute, debilitating wound to a tender spot that only occasionally ached when pressed. During a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands with Brian, sitting on a rocky beach, as the sun set over the water, I shared this realization with him. I used to think healing meant no longer feeling the hurt. I said watching seabirds dive into the waves. But now I understand it's about the hurt no longer controlling you. The scar remains, but it doesn't limit your movement anymore. Brian nodded, skipping a stone across the water's surface. "That's a powerful insight. Do you think you've forgiven them?" I considered the question carefully. I've forgiven myself for not seeing the truth sooner. I've released most of my anger because carrying it was only hurting me. As for true forgiveness of Tyler and Natalie, I paused, searching for honest words. I'm at peace with what happened. It no longer defines me. Maybe that's its own form of forgiveness. Later that night, in our small inn by the harbor, I received an email from my mother. Natalie had announced her engagement to a fellow artist she'd met in Portland. The wedding would be small, just family, and my mother wanted me to know before I heard it elsewhere. I sat with the news, waiting for the surge of complicated emotions it might trigger. Instead, I felt a quiet acknowledgement, neither joy nor resentment. Natalie was moving forward with her life as I had with mine. Our paths had diverged permanently, but perhaps we could each find happiness in our separate journeys. I never replied to Natalie's letters. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt, but I did send a brief message to my mother. Please give Natalie my best wishes for her happiness. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a small step toward a more peaceful coexistence as members of the same family, forever altered but not entirely destroyed by the choices made 3 years ago. The greatest wisdom I gained through this journey was learning to trust myself again. The betrayal had shaken my faith in my own judgment, making me question every instinct. Rebuilding that self-trust proved more challenging than establishing new relationships with others, requiring constant practice in listening to my inner voice and honoring its guidance. True love doesn't ask you to compromise your dignity. I told a client who was struggling with whether to proceed with her wedding after discovering concerning messages on her fiancé's phone. The right relationship elevates you, it doesn't diminish you. As I spoke those words, I recognized their truth in my own life. The devastating end of my relationship with Tyler had ultimately led me to a more authentic understanding of love, one based not on fairy tale ideals, but on mutual respect, honest communication, and unwavering integrity. Sometimes, the happiest ending isn't the fairy tale wedding, but the strength to walk away and create your own story. My story continues to unfold, no longer defined by betrayal, but by the courage it took to rebuild from the ashes of broken trust, and the wisdom gained through that fiery transformation. Have you ever had to completely reinvent yourself after a betrayal? Drop a comment below and share your story. Sometimes, knowing we're not alone in our struggles is the first step toward healing. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life journeys of overcoming life's most painful challenges. And remember, your worth is never determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to rise after they've shown you who they truly are. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to write your own story, whatever chapter you're currently living.